Told Parliament that 10 secondary schools have been closed for lack of students. Is ongoing for 934 junior secondary and primary schools which have received 50% of the capitation funds based on NEMIS registration.
The Office of the Auditor General reported that some of the schools that had received capitation from the Ministry of Education were non-existent. Journalists, there are Kiria Secondary School in Nyandarua, Dr. Mashage Maheto in Migori, Ragia Forest High School in Kiambu, Muwandi Mixed School in Kirinyaga, Friends Bulovi in Kakamega, Luiwat High School in Baringo, Ngamba School in Muranga, Sintankara Secondary School in Narok, Majmazuri Mixed Secondary School in Baringo, and Father Leo Staples Girls in West Pokot.
They must be knowing the accounts. They must be knowing the signatories. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health recently came in and did arrest those people who have been stealing sham money.
When we asked the teachers why the schools closed, they said there were no students. So now we have to go back on the records and find out previously, has money been released to these schools so that we can determine whether there is fraud or not. What the Auditor General did, which was sampling, because it was a forensic audit, that data is already with EACC and they're already undertaking that exercise.
Right, and to our next bulletin this afternoon is that thousands of students in public universities across the country are set to go back to class after lecturers and university staff call off their strike that has lasted for 49 days now. And the lecturers and staffs have agreed to be paid the remaining salary arrears of 7.9 billion shillings in 2 settlements. And for the 2017-2021 collective bargaining agreement, and the first installment will be paid this year, with the government promising to immediately begin negotiations for the 2025-2029 salary review.
Kenya shillings 3.8 billion in November, but not later than 31st December 2025. Kenya shillings 3.8 billion in July 2026.
We're going to have an interministerial CBA implementation team so that we can be looking at how these CBAs that we've signed, whether they are being implemented as agreed.
All disciplinary action commenced during the pendency of the industrial action shall be deemed withdrawn. For employees on contract, the renewal of their contract shall not be prejudiced by participation in the industrial action.
We've agreed that they will rearrange their programs and their calendar to ensure that the students will recover the time they've lost without it being a stress on the students or at any extra cost.
If you honor what we have signed today, there shall be no strike called by WASU up to 2030. But if you don't honor this agreement.
And that news brings us to our first commercial break. We'll be taking a short commercial break, but we will be back with more news in detail, so don't go too far.
Fanto vai tolega chiye. Ichi tariki 22 mweri wa 11 mwaka gono ku nyumba ya Embassy Thika Road barambere kiriga Felix Muita umusubi wa bakamona nyamokori kinyangi chihwena kisambara toka kyoboke. Ichi tariki 22 the Embassy ntolete bya baguru baibange bamahe bana bagoteta abarero nkabere bakorara nyore batokere mu byara urukungoro nonoro kangitanya hukingende mone Omusacharacha kuya chombalinga katana gento nyore onde atetomokali abakyumutumba nkera monta gusoraragero motera nkuri yole ngibintu aragutia sabyanga gotoka ronde kwale basacha ngote tole omukali nyakwenya tale umurogi abo murogi sukale wakamuhaye bora agwita soki atanga gukura omona wane wanganora kweri nageye ndabate bigo bosani baba murano ubuya oracha kwerolenge gukia rosoho wabu mumuro mosani orara oratibiga hano nanyorora kora masani ohenga kwa basacha abasacha n'abantu ba Mungu hano mukali yako n'abamura bagusika
urengo tebirihiga urinende kukubura bakandi bono nobo ukayaja gukorunde ora mukali ali buhita imwemera witungu utarayibura tunja utarayibura kwirwa ubutani bumurambuya ibure ko babora
etabura cha kogoto musacha urusikoro moka oganya bonga kwira gose gokya ronde omusacha okaba mutambi somanyire goseme na wiki okaba mwenye somanyire kobanga mohancho atakengi tiketi ya mapema uchagucha tosangi byakorya iritungu na amaiba kogaba kurya konoti muhungate inye isano muhungati ibere inye imwisato.
That was a short commercial break. Welcome back from that short commercial break. And to our business news this afternoon is that the country has renewed its push for inclusive and sustainable industrial growth as stakeholders convened for the Kenya Industrialization Conference in Nairobi. And the conference is looking to accelerate manufacturing key sectors such as automotive, textile and leather, pharmaceutical, furniture and the creative economy. And on the same page of the business news, Madagascar-based Asians Telecom Holding Management PLC has acquired 99.63% of Wananchi Group Holding Limited and the parent company of Zuku, one of East Africa's fixed broadband and enterprise connectivity providers. And the transaction, which the company says has taken over a year to complete, now marks the entry of Asian into Kenyan market. And our dear viewers, now the last news bulletins here in this afternoon is that the President William Ruto now says the government has been forced to a daily load shedding that is shut off some parts of the country from power supply between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. To keep the national grid stable and cope with the growing power demand. The president, who addressed Kenyans living in Doha, Qatar, Tuesday night, said the country needed over 1 trillion shillings to boost its power capacity to at least 5,000 megawatts to spur growth.
Today in Kenya, jioni between 5 and 10 p.m. we have to do load shedding. We have to shut off some areas to be able to power other areas because our energy haitoshi. One data center requires 1,000 megawatts. Na tuko na 2,300. Tuko na 2,300 megawatts the whole country. So ili tufanye hiyo data center, we have to shut down half the country. We need to build at least 50 mega dams, huge dams. High Grand Forks Dam, Soin Koru Dam. If we have to industrialize, if we have to engage in manufacturing, we need minimum 10,000 megawatts. We need 1.5 trillion shillings. That's just about maybe 10, 12 billion dollars. We can raise that money. So to raise here housing, 600 billion. We raised it. But this one we can raise even without any levy. We'll raise it to me.
That news brings us to the end of our broadcast here this afternoon. Thank you so much for staying tuned from the beginning to the end of this broadcast. I have been your host, Chacha Tobias. Make sure that you are following us in all our social media platforms on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, and X at Pepeta TV. Thank you so much. I wish you a lovely afternoon. Goodbye.